When creating your slab for your tiki, you're going to use 3/8 inch sticks, and you're going to start with your clay right in the center. Your goal is to create as much of a rectangular shaped slab as possible. So you want it a little wide, which will be the total height of your tiki, and then really long, which will help wrap that around to make it. So we're going to go ahead and roll out the slab. Once you're done creating your slab, you want to cut out a perfect rectangle as much as you can. I would suggest using the sticks. And what you're going to do is get a good length down here, good length over here, and then you're going to square it off. So we're going to do just that. Okay, now that you have made your square, this is how the tiki is going to form. We talked about the width being the overall height of your tiki, because what we're going to do is take this and set it up right, and then you're just going to curve it around to form your tiki. Now obviously mine is a little smaller than you're probably going to want to make yours. Mine is probably about the overall size of a Coke can, maybe a little taller. But what you'll do, and I'm going to flip this to the side so you can see this seam, you're actually going to smooth one side over top of another, and you're just going to smooth that out. All right, you're going to do the same thing with this inner seam as well. You may even need to add in a little coil in there to smooth it completely out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You don't have to hold yours the way that I was. I was just trying to make sure you could see it. But you can actually smooth everything out as this is standing up. It'll help you keep your shape a little bit better. But the only extra thing that I would remind you to do is to make sure that you're smoothing out everything entirely before you move on. So it shouldn't even look like you added or connected any clay over here, or even on the inside once you're done. It should be very, very smooth. At this point, you can go ahead and start adding everything else onto the other side of your tiki. So I'm going to try to maneuver the camera in a way that you can see the side a little bit more. That looks good. So now you're going to start adding things onto here. So if you want, you can go ahead and start drawing on here where you want your eyes, if you want to cut them out, however that might look. So if you wanted to cut out your eyes but maybe leave a little thing here, this way you can go ahead and start actually cutting things. If you cut something out, you can use this tool and go all the way through, or you can use this tool right here and start cutting out the areas that you want. And you don't have to do any of this cutting. If you have a whole lot of cutting, you don't have to do it until the clay starts to harden just slightly, because at this point you should realize that it gets a little messy when it's still in the wet stage. But you could still do it, smooth everything back out, you know, make everything look as good as possible, understanding that the expectation is you're going to come back in as it starts to dry and smooth it out even more. So, you know, that's just kind of one way that you can carve out detail. You can also add in detail. So let's say, I'm going to roll a quick coil here. Let's say I wanted to add in lips. You could take a coil and go ahead and start adding in a mouth. And then what you would do is smooth this on. Remember, you can't just set something up onto clay and expect it to stay as it dries. So we're going to smooth this whole thing in. So now I have that completely attached. You can go through, you can smooth everything out, make it look really good. I would suggest continue adding three-dimensional aspects. The more that you add, the better it's going to look. You can start adding in teeth. If you wanted, you could either carve in teeth like this, if that kind of works for you. Or you could carve out this whole area, carve it through just like you did there. Or you can even add in teeth. So let's move that back. You see my slab here. I can cut out kind of what I want. And you can even add in teeth. So you would attach this the same exact way that you attached your lips. I won't do it right now. But then you could carve in, you know, these details for your teeth, just kind of going quick. But you could have that in there as well if you wanted. But I kind of like my carving here, so we'll stick with that. Don't forget to do something extra with the rim. It ends up very boring if you kind of leave it as is. So I would suggest suggest something that's going to make it look a little bit more interesting. There are just so many options for what you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and do something right now and just kind of play around with it a little bit. Once you have whatever it is you're going to do, just make sure that you are always reinforcing any attachments that you've made with an extra piece of clay, however you might need to do that. And then you can keep going from there. So you have a lot of different options that you could do with your piece. Just make sure that you're making it look as interesting and unique and creative as you possibly can. It doesn't really matter what you do. Again, just make sure that it's interesting. You could even add on the bottom here a whole bunch of little buttons or clay spheres. And of course you would add them on just like you're supposed to. But you can see the more that we add, the more three-dimensional things that we add and areas that we take out and ways that we build this up, the more interesting it becomes.